everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're talking about keeping your Cane Corso safe.
Safe from a hidden danger that might be lurking right under your nose.
That's right, we're talking about toxic houseplants.
Something that a lot of people don't even think about.
Yeah, and it's serious stuff. We've got a ton of information to dig into today.
We've got expert advice, we've got breed-specific insights.
We've even got some pretty heated discussions from plant and pet lovers online.
Oh yeah, those can get intense.
So let's get right into it.
So when we think about Cane Corsos, these dogs are big, they're strong, they're curious.
Definitely not lap dogs.
Exactly, so they're more likely to, explore with their mouths.
And that can be a problem if they come across the wrong houseplant.
Exactly, and what's really eye-opening?
What's that?
The Pet Poison Helpline, they actually report that plants are one of the top pet toxins.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's that common.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk specifics then. What are some of the most dangerous plants that Cane Corso owners need to be aware of?
Well, instead of just throwing a huge list at you, let's break it down a bit.
Okay, I like that.
I've kind of grouped them into categories based on the type of danger they pose.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the first category?
Let's start with what I call the deadly trio.
The deadly trio.
Yep.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
These are the plants that pose the most serious risk to your Cane Corso. We're talking potential life-threatening situations here.
Okay, so this is serious stuff. Let's hear it. Who are the members of this deadly trio?
Right, so the first one is the sago palm.
Sago palm. Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a pretty common houseplant. But here's the thing. Every single part of this plant is toxic.
Every part.
Stems, leaves, seeds, the whole shebang.
Wow. And what happens if a dog eats it?
Well, we're not talking just a little upset stomach here.
Oh.
Ingesting even a small amount can cause serious liver damage.
And that can be fatal, right?
Absolutely. So sago palm, definitely a big no-no for Cane Corso households.
Okay, sago palm is out.
Yeah.
What's the next member of this dangerous trio?
Okay, so number 2 is Dieffenbachia.
Dieffenbachia? That's a mouthful?
It is. It's also known as dumb cane.
Dumb cane. I feel like that name's a warning sign.
It is. It really is. This plant contains these tiny little crystals that are shaped like needles.
Ouch.
Yeah, and when these crystals get into a dog's mouth, they cause intense pain and swelling.
Oh, I can imagine. I'm getting sympathetic mouth pain just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not pretty. It can affect their tongue, their throat, even their airways.
That sounds really scary.
It can be, so definitely one to avoid.
Okay, so we've got sago palm, we've got dumb cane, who's the final member of this deadly trio.
This one might surprise you. It's oleander.
Oleander, really? I always thought those were just pretty flowering shrubs.
They're beautiful, but they're also incredibly toxic to dogs.
How toxic are we talking?
We're talking potentially fatal here.
Seriously?
Yeah. Oleander can cause severe gastrointestinal problems. It can disrupt heart function.
So it's not messing around.
Not at all. So if you have a Cane Corso, oleander is definitely a plant to steer clear of.
Okay, so we've got our deadly trio, sago palm, dumb cane, and oleander. These all sound incredibly dangerous.
They are. And it's important to remember that even small amounts of these plants can cause serious problems.
So if you suspect your Cane Corso has ingested any part of these plants, what should you do?
Don't wait. Call your vet immediately.
Right, because with something this serious, every minute counts.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are the big three, but I'm guessing there are other plants out there that can cause problems for Cane Corsos too, right?
You are absolutely right. There are a lot more plants that, while they may not be as immediately life-threatening, can still cause significant discomfort and health issues.
So it's not just about avoiding the worst-case scenario, but also preventing any unnecessary suffering for our furry friends.
Exactly.
So what's the next category of plants we should be aware of?
Let's call this group the sneaky irritants.
Sneaky irritants.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this group.
So these plants might not send your dog to the emergency room right away, but they can cause a whole lot of discomfort and irritation.
And I imagine for a dog that means a lot of drooling and pawing at their face.
Exactly.
So what are some examples of these sneaky irritants?
Well, one common one is aloe vera.
Aloe vera, really? But isn't that supposed to be good for, soothing skin and stuff?
It is for humans, but for dogs, it's a different story.
How so?
Well, the chemicals in aloe vera can cause a lot of digestive upset in dogs.
So even though it's known for its medicinal properties for us, it can actually be harmful to our furry friends.
Exactly. It's one of those things that's good for us, but not so good for them.
Okay, so aloe vera is on the sneaky irritants list. What else is there?
Well, there are a couple of common houseplants that are particularly troublesome for a Cane Corso's mouth.
Oh, no, which ones?
Philodendron and pothos.
I have both of those.
A lot of people do. They're popular houseplants, but here's the thing. They both contain those pesky calcium oxalate
The
crystals.
ones that cause all that pain and swelling.
Exactly. Those tiny little needles can really irritate a dog's mouth, throat, and tongue.
So it's not just about avoiding serious illnesses, but also preventing a lot of discomfort for our pups.
Precisely. And these sneaky irritants can actually lead to more serious complications, too.
Oh, how so?
Well, for example, if your Cane Corso has a swollen tongue from chewing on a philodendron, they might have trouble eating and drinking.
And that could lead to dehydration.
Exactly. And dehydration can become a serious problem pretty quickly, especially in larger breeds like Cane Corsos.
That's a great point. We often focus on the big, scary outcomes,
Hmm.
but even milder symptoms can have a significant impact on our dog's well-being.
Absolutely. It's all about being aware of the potential risks and taking steps to minimize them.
So we've got the deadly trio and the sneaky irritants. Are there any other categories of toxic plants we should be aware of?
There is one more group that I think deserves a mention.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Let's call them the long-term troublemakers.
Long-term troublemakers. So these plants might not cause immediate traumatic symptoms,
Right.
but repeated exposure could lead to chronic issues down the road. Okay, I'm getting a little nervous now. What kind of long-term problems are we talking about?
Well, a good example is the asparagus fern.
Asparagus fern. Okay, I've seen those around.
Yeah, they're quite popular, but while they might not be as immediately dangerous as, say, a sago palm, repeated exposure to an asparagus fern can cause allergic dermatitis in dogs.
Allergic dermatitis, for those of us who aren't veterinarians, could you explain what that is?
Sure, so allergic dermatitis is basically an allergic reaction that manifests on the skin.
Oh, so like a rash or something.
Kind of. It can cause itching, redness, hair loss, even sores.
That sounds really uncomfortable for a dog.
It is. It's not fun for them, and it can be pretty tricky to clear up.
So asparagus fern noted. Are there any other long-term troublemakers we should be watching out for?
Another one to be aware of is the jade plant.
Jade plant. I love those. They're so low maintenance.
I know, right? But unfortunately for dogs, it can be a bit of a problem.
Really? So?
While a little nibble here and there might not cause too much trouble, repeated chewing on a jade plant can lead to some pretty nasty symptoms.
Like what?
Vomiting, depression, even problems with coordination.
Wow. And I'm guessing this is especially important for a breed like the Cane Corso.
You're catching on because their size and deep chests make them more susceptible to bloat.
And bloat can be really dangerous, right?
Absolutely. It's a life-threatening condition and something we want to avoid at all costs.
So jade plant, another one to add to the watch list.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got our deadly trio, our sneaky irritants, and our long-term troublemakers. That's a lot to remember.
It is.
Is there a way we can make this information a bit more digestible?
Absolutely. The key takeaway here is simply to be aware of the potential dangers lurking in your houseplants.
Okay, so knowledge is power.
Exactly, and to take the time to research specific plants before bringing them into your home.
That's great advice. But before we all run off to Google every plant in our homes, I think it's time to move on to some practical tips on how to keep our Cane Corsos safe. What do you say?
Sounds like a plan. Let's dive into that in part 2 of this deep dive.
Awesome. Can't wait. Okay, so we've got the deadly trio, the sneaky irritants, and the long-term troublemakers. A whole rogues gallery of potentially hazardous houseplants.
It's enough to make you want to pave your living room.
Right. But don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging with all this scary information. We're going to dive into the practical stuff now.
Yes. Let's talk about how to actually keep your Cane Corso safe.
So what's the best line of defense here?
Well, honestly, the best defense is a good offense.
Prevention.
Exactly. And when it comes to plant poisoning, prevention means removing any toxic plants from your home altogether.
Okay, that makes sense in theory. But as a fellow plant lover, I would admit that's a tough one.
I hear ya. I love my plants too.
What if you just can't bear to part with your prized monstera?
Well, if removing them isn't an option, the next best thing is strategic placement.
Okay, so how do we strategically place our plants to keep them away from curious Cane Corsos?
Vertical. Think high shelves, hanging planters.
So basically anywhere your Cane Corso can't reach.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
And hopefully out of mouth.
Exactly.
But even with the best placement, I'm guessing supervision is still crucial.
Absolutely. You know, never underestimate a dog's determination when it comes to getting their paws on something interesting, especially a Cane Corso.
They are a determined breed.
They are. So even if you think your dog isn't interested in plants, all it takes is one moment of curiosity.
And a mouthful of Dieffenbachia.
Exactly. So supervision is key.
Okay, so removal or relocation plus vigilant supervision, got it. But what about when you're bringing a brand new plant into your home? What's the best way to approach that?
Research, research, research.
Just before you even set foot in a nursery.
Yes, take some time to learn about which plants are safe for dogs.
Okay. And are there good resources for this?
Oh, absolutely. Tons of them. There are some fantastic websites and even apps that list pet-friendly plants.
Awesome. We'll be sure to link to a few of those in the show notes.
Perfect.
So a little bit of homework goes a long way in preventing a potential doggy disaster.
It really does.
Speaking of pet-friendly options, are there any plants that you particularly recommend, ones that are both beautiful and safe for our furry friends?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many stunning plants that won't pose a threat to your Cane Corso.
Okay, like what?
Well, some of my personal favorites include spider plants.
Those are nice and easy to care for, too.
They are, and they look great in hanging baskets, which keeps them out of reach.
Good point. What else?
Areca palms, those are always a good choice.
They add a nice tropical vibe.
They do, and Boston ferns, those are classic for a reason.
What about prayer plants? I love those.
Yes, prayer plants are wonderful and totally safe for pups.
But even with safe plants, it's always a good idea to introduce them gradually, right?
Absolutely. Start by placing them in an area your dog doesn't frequent and monitor their behavior closely.
So it's all about being proactive and informed.
Exactly.
But what happens if, despite our best efforts, our Cane Corso manages to snag a bite of something they shouldn't?
The dreaded what-if scenario.
What are the signs of plant poisoning that we should be looking out for?
Well, the symptoms can vary depending on the plant and the amount ingested, but some common signs include vomiting,
Okay.
diarrhea, loss of appetite,
Lethargy.
yes, drooling, and difficulty breathing.
Okay. So those are some pretty clear indicators that something's not right.
They are, and in more severe cases, you might also notice tremors, seizures, or even collapse,
So basically, any sudden change in your dog's behavior
especially after they've been near plants.
should be a red flag.
Absolutely.
Got it. So if we see any of these signs, whether mild or severe, what's the absolute first thing we should do?
Call your vet.
Immediately.
Immediately, don't waste time trying to figure it out yourself or looking up home remedies.
This is not the time for Dr. Google.
Definitely not. Time is of the essence when it comes to plant poisoning.
And I know some people might be tempted to try to induce vomiting at home, but that can actually be harmful in some situations, right?
Absolutely. It's best to leave any treatment decisions to the professionals.
And if you can, it's helpful to tell your vet the name of the plant or even bring a sample with you, right?
Yes, absolutely. The more information you can give them, the better.
So they can identify the toxin and determine the best course of treatment.
Exactly.
So we've talked about prevention strategies and what to do in case of an emergency.
We have.
But before we wrap things up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. What's the most important message you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway here is that knowledge truly is power.
I like that.
By understanding the risks associated with certain houseplants and taking proactive steps to create a safe environment, we can ensure that both we and our beloved Cane Corsos can enjoy a happy and healthy life together.
It's a beautiful reminder that our homes should be havens for all members of the family, furry or otherwise.
I agree.
And speaking of havens, any final tips or insights you can share to help our listeners create a space that's both stimulating and safe for their Cane Corsos?
Absolutely. You know, this deep dive has really just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn.
There's a whole world of information out there about pet-safe plants, dog-friendly gardening techniques.
And enriching activities that can keep your Cane Corso mentally and physically engaged.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
A home that's both beautiful and stimulating for us, but also safe and enriching for our canine companions.
You got it.
So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive about the risks of toxic houseplants for Cane Corsos.
We've covered those dangerous plants, the sneaky ones, and the ones that can cause problems over time.
Yeah, and we've given some practical tips for prevention and what to do in case of an emergency.
But now it's time to take action.
That's right. So what's one challenge you would give to our listeners today?
Well, I want you to look around your home with fresh eyes.
Look for potential dangers.
Exactly what changes can you make today to make your home safer for your furry friend?
So maybe swapping out a dangerous plant for a pet-friendly alternative.
That's a great one. Or rearranging your furniture to make those tempting plants inaccessible.
Or even just being more diligent about supervision.
Exactly. Every little bit helps.
And let's not forget about enriching activities.
Oh, yes. A tired dog is a good dog.
So a long walk, a game of fetch, a challenging puzzle toy, anything to keep their minds and bodies engaged.
Exactly. And I think the key takeaway here is that creating a safe space for your Cane Corso doesn't mean you have to give up your love of plants.
It's all about finding that balance.
Exactly, a home that's beautiful and safe for all its inhabitants.
Well said. So for our listeners who want to learn more, we've got tons of resources linked in the show notes.
We've got lists of pet-safe plans, tips for creating a dog-friendly garden, and ideas for enriching activities.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those tails wagging.
And we want to hear from you. Share your own tips and tricks for keeping your Cane Corso safe on our social media.
Let's build a community of informed and passionate Cane Corso owners.
Sounds good to me.
That's a wrap on another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.